Hey guys, it's Yishan here. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about the upcoming January 2022 ban list. Now, other than the fact that it would be remiss of me as a YouTuber not to talk about the ban list, I actually think I have some important things to discuss. And sort of one of these things that I want to discuss with you about this ban list is this idea of a hard reset. The community sort of feels like right now that there needs to be a hard reset. And what do I mean by this, right? What is a hard reset? Well, I think it's best to give an example. The last hard reset sort of occurred during the Eternal format. It actually ended the Eternal format. For those of you that don't know, the Eternal format was this format where Sky Striker, Orcus, Thunder Dragon, Salamangreat, Pendulum, lots of really, really good decks were there at the time. And this ban list in January 2020 banned everything. Just totally wiped all these decks off the map. They banned Engage, they banned Harpor, they banned Colossus, they banned Mirage Stalio, they banned Ib, which was like there was some Ib Turbo doing crazy stuff at the time, and then Electromite as well. So Pendulums also got hit. And basically it just totally nuked the format because these decks were all just so powerful. They were not giving decks room to breathe. In fact, people were playing like Sky Striker and Orcus together, and it was just crazy. But right now, we're not really asking for a hard reset on decks. What we're actually asking for is a hard reset on floodgates. There's been this community sentiment going around recently, and that's sort of the elephant in the room that I want to address is what is this community sentiment about? That is, let's get rid of all these floodgates, right? These cards that have been with us for a while, all of a sudden seem to, out of nowhere, have become problems. Or were they problems the whole time? And now it's just a good time to ban them. Well, I'm going to answer those questions for you. And it's certainly interesting. Certainly interesting, right? Like, why is this the case? So what are we talking about here? What is different this time around, right? That's sort of the main question, right? Is that these floodgates have been around for a while, right? Why are we sort of making them the scapegoat now, right? Why are we not banning cards like out of decks that are strong? Well, I think one of the reasons that I am here for, and this is what I want to analyze for you guys, is that the top decks don't really have an obvious singular best card, right? If we look back at this list, it was clear that Engage was the best card in Sky Striker. It was clear that Harpor was the best card in Orcus. It was clear that Colossus was the best card in Thunder Dragon. And Electromite was clearly the best card in Pendulums. Mirage Stalio, not quite, because I think Gazelle might be the best card in that deck. But Salamangreat's more of like an evenly spread out power level deck, whereas Ib is honestly, it's like it was like the point of that whole deck, that like these Ib Turbo decks. So, I think, that's one of the issues is that there isn't a scapegoat, actually, right? Right now, I think the top two decks are Sword Soul Tenyi and Lyreless Tri Brigade. And, you could argue that Mo Yi is the best card in Sword Soul Tenyi, but it's not by that much, right? All the other pieces are still extremely important. Invoke stuff, right? Like, that, I don't even know what card to put here as like what's the maybe best card in that deck. There's so many good cards in that deck. Bird Call, Bird Call is really strong, but one of the huge advantages of Lyreless Tri Brigade is all that crazy stuff. Now, I will admit Bird Call is the best card, right? But I think maybe just Bird Call wouldn't have made Lyreless Tri Brigade the powerhouse it is. The fact that you have Barrel Canary now, right, is a huge deal, right? You have a way to search Bird Call with a bird. It's all insane, right? So, that sort of thing. Now, we have some old decks, right? Technically, Engage is still the best deck in like the DP Striker decks, and Rusty is probably still the best card in the Phantom Knight decks, but it's hard to say. These cards used to be banned, right? So maybe they're slightly different, right? They're not really modern cards. But instead of sort of seeing having those cards be the boogeyman, right? Because, they're powerful, right? We see a lot of the same cards over and over again. We see a lot of Forbidden Droplets. We see a lot of Floodgates. We see a lot of Nibiru's, these high impact answers, right? I mean, we still see Ash, we still see Imperm, right? But we're seeing a lot more of these high impact answers. Droplets, Floodgates, Nibiru, and these cards aren't the most interactive, right? And I think this sums it up best. This statement right here was, it used to be that the rogue decks would be the one playing Floodgates to keep up with the meta decks. But now the meta decks play Floodgates to keep up with other meta decks, right? It used to be like, when I played Gren Maju a couple years ago, right? I side decked TC Boo. I was like, a non-meta deck where you could side deck Summon Limit. Now we see Dragon Link and other meta decks playing Summon Limit, right, in their side deck, which is crazy. Like that shouldn't be a thing. Usually meta decks were not the ones to rely on Floodgates, but rogue decks would use them to sort of combat meta decks at the time, right? Maybe in their side deck. But that's changed, right? Everyone's on Floodgates or high impact answers, very swingy cards. And people are they're getting tired of that instead of having a boogeyman card in a deck. Like, oh, well, yeah, it's Moe, that's the problem. Or it's Bird Call, that's the problem, right? No, it's these people are feeling that's why there's this community sentiment that these Floodgates need to be banned right now. I think that's what I was trying to figure that out. Like, why now are people so interested in getting rid of these Floodgates? And I think that is the reason why, is that these decks are so maybe powerful or so diversely powerful that it's hard to blame a single card. So what we do is we also see all these Floodgates because the decks are powerful. We need powerful answers, and we see these Floodgates over and over again, and people are starting to get a little bit tired of it. And that, that's really what it is, right? I think Yu-Gi-Oh has gone faster, and it's just kept getting faster. And I think that's why a hard reset is important from time to time, right? Like that one that happened in January 2020. Those decks were just crowding everything else out. But what's weird now is that those decks that are currently crowding other decks out don't have a boogeyman, right? And in fact, you get these games just decided by Floodgates, people flipping Floodgates on each other, right? And, and droplets, Nibiru, just high impact cards trying to not interact as much with your opponent. Droplets literally can't be interacted with, and Floodgates just prevent you from doing anything, right? So I think that's why people are going after the Floodgates, is that's what they're seeing in the meta right now. There's not really a boogeyman, but there is sort of in Floodgates, that Floodgates are just popping up even in meta decks, right? And so that, I think, is the reason why people are, that's why the thumbnails in Pure Order, people right now feel the power of these things, because these are the only answers that are really truly effective in today's meta. And so I think that's what it is. So that leaves me with the last question. I'm not going to try to bother with you or predict for you other cards like Moe or Bird Call, but I'm going to give you my opinion on what we should do about the Floodgates, right? So I think hopefully I've made my point across, which is, here is why. Why are people so obsessed with Floodgates this format, right? And so yeah, that's sort of, I think, why. Personally, the Floodgates that I think should definitely be banned are Imperial Order and Mystic Mine. Every time these cards are activated, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, Mystic Mine, this is not a good gameplay experience to have people passing 10, 20 turns to each other, right? It just doesn't make any sense. Imperial Order, it violates the ultimate property of Floodgates, which is it like one of those Floodgates that you can play in a deck that plays spells? And the answer is yes. Like, literally, you have decks that are playing a quarter spells or more and still playing this card in the main deck. Sort of like when people used to play Royal Oppression or Vanity's Emptiness in decks that special summon because you make a board and then you flip up the best Floodgate in the game, right? And then you win. So I think that's really the issue. Also, Imperial Order is like one of the few counters to the cards that get around these, all these negates, like Droplets, right? Dark Ruler, it's one of the few counters to that. So that is really, I think, those two cards need to be banned, in my opinion. They violate the fundamental rules of Floodgates. Mystic Mine on just making gameplay completely miserable, and Imperial Order making it so that even in decks that supposedly, hey, well, you're running 15 spells, you shouldn't run this card in your deck. No, I'm running this card in my deck. I don't give a crap. Like that's a problem, right? I don't like, so that's like the high tier. Let's say the A tier. I don't like card design like Protos, Arc Nemesis Protos, or Harpy's Featherstorm, because I think that, they're not as bad because they're like specific to archetypes. And it's just funny that we have a Winged Beast and a Worm archetype in the meta right now, right? These cards only exist for those two archetypes. We have them in the meta right now. I think if those decks get weaker, we will see less complaints about these cards. Now, if they got banned in the next ban list, I wouldn't complain. I really wouldn't. Like, it wouldn't bother me at all. These cards aren't great card design. They also limit, like, card usability. Like, it just doesn't, like, sorry, card, future card design, basically, which is like, this is what happens, right? If you design a good Winged Beast deck, this card is gonna see play. That's just how it is. If you design a good Worm deck, all of a sudden Arc Nemesis Protoss is gonna see play. Now, Protoss is pretty unique in that Sword Soul can make many different attributes, which is pretty unique. So I really don't think Protoss needs to be banned. Harpy's Featherstorm, more of a liability because it's just so easy to use in any Winged Beast deck. But again, if these decks get nerfed a little, you will see less of it, and then people will complain less, I think. So I think it's really okay. The last one is Artifact Scythe, I think, is really the last. I mean, people are talking about Dagda, whatever. I think Artifact Scythe is the main floodgate. And the reason I don't think Scythe, I mean, it's currently a problem. Don't get me wrong, this card's a problem. I think the biggest problem with it, though, right now, is Destiny Hero Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, right? Like, I know Yu-Gi-Oh has gotten faster, but people have been using the extra deck reliance has not changed. Roughly, we have the same amount of extra deck reliance that we had, 2 years ago that we have now. I think the biggest change is that now if you draw up this brick, right? If you draw this brick, you're going to draw this brick 5% of your games, even when you're going first, 5% of the time, right? Even now, drawing this brick is just not that big a deal because it's so easy to pop by yourself now. It's like laughably easy. So the problem with Scythe is, Scythe was almost balanced around the fact that, it's a very generic floodgate, unlike Harpy's Featherstorm and Protoss, but like, it bricked a lot, right? And that was like your drawback for playing it. And I think Yu-Gi-Oh has been okay with that sort of card design. But now it's almost laughable. I mean, it's not great to draw, but literally, like, I've seen DP pop this card, hard-drawn card, so many times. Right? It's like, it's almost laughable. I think that's really the big problem with Scythe. I think that's sort of a big problem with DPE, though, right? And Scythe is really, what does Konami want to do with DP? If they don't want to do anything to DP, then yeah, I think Scythe is an issue because the fact you can just pop it for no reason, right? It's just, to me, that's really the big issue, is that, like, it's not balanced the way when it was designed. It's like, well, you might brick with your deck, right? And sometimes stopping your opponent's extra deck isn't like the end all be all. And so that was what sort of balanced Scythe. But now you can just pop it, and really there's, it's not that hard to do. So I think that's really the problem. So I think Konami needs to decide what they want to do with DP. Sorry, I don't know why I belabored this Scythe point so long. But that's really it, guys. Like, I think that's really it. Like, these are the floodgates that people are talking about. Those are my opinions on them. Let me know what you guys think of my theory about why people are so concerned about the floodgates now. Sort of interested to hear your theories, but that was just mine. I hope you guys enjoyed this ban list discussion video. I can't wait till the ban list comes out so I can react to it like all the other YouTubers. But yeah, until then, guys, hope you guys enjoyed. See you in the next video. Peace.